Well, I hope that we have achieved something like what Mary Gauthier said was her goal, which is to present something that's deeply, deeply personal in such a way that it becomes universal. And I hope that audiences have a moment of connection with the story, with the characters, even if it's a moment or a conversation, something that feels like inspiration or insight. I was saying earlier, I think theater is a lot like church, and in its best sense. And I think that's how it's like that, right? Is that if there is some point of connection that makes me, this is what I want out of theater when I go. So this is what I hope happens with Salvage, with audiences is there's a moment that makes me go, whoa, something that feels personal. It's like, I get that. I'm that guy. I know that moment. That reminds me of that time. And it makes me think, and it makes me ponder. And I would hope that it becomes fodder for a fertile conversation, whether it's, hey, let's go out for a drink afterwards and talk about it, or the next morning over coffee, we're still talking about it. That's what I hope. That's what I think we endeavor to do. Hi, I'm Tim Alderson. I'm the playwright who wrote Salvage. If you'd like to learn more, listen to this interview. Salvage premiered in November of 2019, and we ran, right up into the pandemic. And it was an idea that I carried around for a long time, and it really did feel at a certain point like it was something that had to be appeased. And I choose that word intentionally because it just felt like this imperative. It really started in my head as it's probably just a way of wrangling the voices in my own head. But so one of those voices became this one character, and another voice became another character. And so then it just started with me writing. I imagined this situation of, two guys in a bar. The only thing they have in common is they're both songwriters, but they have a lot not in common. And it just started with a conversation between those two. And then one day another character showed up, and so now he's in the conversation, and another character showed up, and now she's in the conversation. And so before I attempted writing, I remember hearing writers, primarily songwriters, talk about how they don't know where the song came from. It just showed up. I read an interview not long ago with Bob Dylan after he got the Nobel Prize. How did you come up with all those songs? He said, I have no idea. I don't even know who the guy was who wrote those songs. I sort of understand that at this point. I don't compare myself to Bob Dylan. I don't mean that, but I'm just saying, I don't know where it came from. I just started writing, and the thing, it felt like it wrote itself. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration. When it was really humming, it felt like it was writing itself. There were moments where it's like, I'm stuck and I really had to work at that. But I think it comes from the conversations in my own head. It's not just that, though. All of these characters have some parts and pieces of people I've known in my life who were dear to me. And so I think it hits some fairly universal themes in that way, just in terms of these conversations that take place. It centers around a young character named Harley, who is a very talented singer-songwriter whose career trajectory really hasn't matched the level of his talent. And he's at a point where he's finally having to think about, maybe this just isn't going to happen for me, and maybe it's time to, grow up and get a job and that whole thing. And that's brought on by the fact that he's got a young wife who is now pregnant, and they're getting ready to start a family. And so he's at that crisis crossroads moment. Do I do the thing that my soul tells me I should be doing, or do I do the responsible thing? So it kind of centers around that. Each of the characters is at a point in their life where they're dealing with some level of loss, regret, disappointment, fear, and that's whether they're looking forward or looking backward. There are two characters that are older and two characters that are younger, and the two that are older are old enough to have, to be it's a generational shift, right? They're old enough to have been parents of these younger two. So they've already sort of arrived at their destination, or so they feel, and the others are kind of trying to figure out where they're going, and all of that kind of clashes. Each person in the play, though, takes this journey and finds themselves with some different level of clarity or insight for having been thrown together in this moment. Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my life to be friends with some very talented people. And so the principal songwriters are Mark Hurd and Pat Terry. And I met Mark and Pat both back in the 80s when, right out of college, actually while I was still in college, I went to work for a booking agency. We booked concert tours for artists, mostly either at the beginning of or some crossroads in their career, or the people that I was working with. And that's how I met Mark and Pat, initially just as their booking agents. And we became really good friends, especially at the time, Mark, because he lived here in LA. Pat lives in Atlanta. And anyway, so Mark is just one of the most brilliant songwriters. He passed away several years ago. I don't remember whether it was Paste Magazine or Rolling Stone, somebody, and it was on the anniversary of his death, somebody did an article or something like the best songwriter you never heard of. And they put him in the company of, they said he was, what was the word? Well, it doesn't matter. They put him in the company of Bob Dylan, Townes Van Zandt, Leonard Cohen, that level of songwriter. And Pat had a solo career for a while, but ultimately settled down in Nashville as a songwriter. So he wrote a lot of hit songs for other artists, major artists that we've all heard of, songs that we all know, and so that's his life as a career as a songwriter. So these two guys were really great songwriters. And so as I was writing this thing and decided that this young Harley was a musician and the old guy was once upon a time an aspiring musician, songwriter. And so I started just as placeholders using my friends' songs. And then it's kind of like when a tree grows around a fence, the more I left them in their place, the more they became integral to the story. And it all just made perfect sense. And it was all just kind of magic. And Pat was very happy to be involved. Mark's wife was very happy to have the music involved. And then Pat and I did some writing together, and all that's there. Also, the older character we learned that his context, we learned he's a fan of country music. So when the young guy first enters the bar, the old guy is sitting there playing bits and pieces of Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, and stuff like that. So I just happened to have the fortune in life to have two of my closest friends also be two of the best songwriters anybody would want to hear. So that worked out well. So Salvage is directed by Damian Lewis. He goes by Damian D. Lewis, so people don't confuse him with the other Damian Lewis, the actor. But I first met Damian. I had seen him, this is years ago now, I don't remember what year it would have been, but it was quite some time ago. I saw him in the lead role in Othello, in a smallish production in Hollywood, and I was stunned. It was true then, and it remains true now, that it was the best performance of Othello I've ever seen. And I have seen others since then, and it was just so I was just stunned by his ability. It wasn't by his ability, because I was so sucked into the performance that I was in it all the way, and it carried me away. I just thought that guy was amazing. So fast forward, my oldest son was going to the LA County High School for the Arts in the theater program. And at the time, Damien was teaching in that program, which I felt very privileged to have, my son under his tutelage. And so anyway, once I had finished writing Salvage and didn't really know what to do next, a friend of mine whose career is in that realm, he's an agent who represents film music composers and Broadway composers, and he said, well, you need to have a staged reading. And I said, what's that? And he said, that's where you get some actors on a stage to read the play. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. So because you need to find a director. So I just looked up Damien and I thought, well, that guy is amazing. And I know he directs as well as acts. So I just found him on Facebook and messaged him and hoping for the best. And he got back to me and he said, send me the script. And then some time went by and I thought, well, he hates it, so I'm never going to hear from him. And ultimately he did get back to me. He loved it and wanted to jump on board. So he's been on board with us from the very beginning, since the very first reading, and has shepherded this thing all the way through to where it is now. And he really is a brilliant director. He now runs he's head of the acting program at Cal Arts. So he's quite good at what he does. And the cast, we have the most brilliant casting director. His name is Michael Donovan, and he's been around forever. And I call him the conjurer because, when it was time for auditions, the first time around, and then with this reboot, it's these people show up who are, I said to him one day, I said, I don't know how you do that because that guy is the guy that was in my head when I wrote this thing. So I don't know how you went and found him, but it was that way with all the characters. This time around, two of the actors are back, the two older guys, and the young couple are new this time around. It's a little different than it was before, but it is absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't say that it's better because I don't want to imply that what we had before was anything, substandard, because it wasn't. It was great last time, and we got great reviews and awards and such. So, but this time around, it's just another different kind of energy. We have one of the older guys is Leonard Earl Howes, who has been in a lot of things. He's in a new Netflix show right now, which creates some interesting challenges for him logistically, because they film in North Carolina, and then he's got to come back to LA for shows on the weekend. So that's always interesting. But he's been in everything. Probably the thing people most recognize him from is Barbershop and Barbershop 2. He was in that. David Atkinson, who plays a character called Preacher, is, again, he's one of those actors who's been around for a long time and has done stage and film and television, and he's been in everything, it seems. I think most recently, and I may not be up to date, he was in Hillbilly Elegy, directed by Ron Howard, and he was one of my favorite shows is Barry. I love that show. David was in an episode of Barry. That was a ton of fun to watch him do that. So he's been around a long time. The guy who plays the character Harley, Sam O'Byrne, really talented young actor who, right before the pandemic, or no, I think somewhere before the pandemic, he graduated from Carnegie Mellon through their theater program. Great actor. Weird time to come out of school and try to start your career when the whole world shuts down. So he's very excited to be in this show. And the gal who plays the character Destiny, her name is Nat'l. She's originally from Washington, D.C. area, did theater there, went to New York, was doing theater there, came out to L.A., has done a lot of stuff. And then again, the world shut down, and now we're back. So she's got, it's a really talented foursome, and the chemistry between all of them is totally believable, and it just, you just get completely immersed in the story with these folks. They're really great actors. People really, really should come see the show. I think if people are confident enough in that it's safe, and we have taken all the precautions. And I understand why people may still be skittish, but if people are feeling comfortable going out in public in a situation that is as safe as we can make it and following all the guidelines, I think it will be a very liberating experience in several ways of taking that word, right? Liberating, like you're getting out of our self-imposed incarceration, but very liberating to get back to that sense of theater, the communal experience of theater. And I do know from enough conversations throughout the life of Salvage that people do find it inspirational, and the music really is it's people. This you always hear this, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll leave the theater singing, but that is what happens, and the songs really are kind of earworms, and so people leave humming the songs, and so it just, in this moment in time, the opportunity to get out and see live theater, I would say take the opportunity. It really is. It's I think it's even more impactful now when we've been without it for so long, than when there's been such a drought. So based on opening weekend, I think I can say you'll have a great time. Come on down. Yeah, I'm Tim Alderson. I'm the playwright who wrote Salvage. It's on stage now at the Hudson Theater in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard. I do know that audiences have responded very well to this show. The people who have come have loved it. Critics have responded very well to this show. Every review we have had has been positive, which is stunning. And we've won awards and whatnot. So I think I can be confident in saying that people are going to enjoy it. So you can get tickets at onstage411.com/salvage. And we can't wait to see you. Come on out. Thanks.